Hello and welcome to another yet amazing episode about Lucky These Stories. You know, um, few months back when I first started this Lucky These Story concept, the idea was not to bring a famous people. The idea was not to bring people who have already established themselves, but the idea was to bring a normal yet people who could make an impact in the society. And in that mind, keeping that in a mindset, I always thought that for that perspective, the age doesn't matter, the faith of line they belongs to doesn't matter. What matter is what they have to share and how they can make an impact in the society. And today's episode is a witness to that thought. And I say this because today's guest is a 14-year-old Angad Singh, whom I have a pleasure to know him for past maybe 2 years or 3 years. In fact, if I go back, I remember his mother would bring in a car seat in a Norwalk Gurdwara. So I know him from them. And if I take a little back, I know his father from of my college days. And his story is very inspiring, especially for me and for others. And I say this because I remember the first time, I think he was 12, and he shared the story, and he was on a stage speaking about what is the Sikhism from the faith that he belongs to, and the way he articulated that was very touching and very inspiring. And he had that on a PowerPoint slides, and the way articulated that, from there on, I have seen him growing from one after another with his speeches. And every time he has shared his speeches, um, it has touched me and many others who actually do not say in public, but they would come and say, "Oh my God, this kid is amazing." But I would make every effort after his speeches, whenever I hear, go to him and I tell him. And I also talk to his mother and say, "You're a blessed mom. You guys are blessed parents to have a kid like him." So two weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I spoke to him, Angad, and I spoke to his mom, and I said, "Would you be open to come to the podcast so that we can have his story listen, that how he prepares his speeches, and at the age of 14, how he is able to articulate his speeches and be able to bring people together, and how he's able to share his thought process in a very short span of a time." So, welcome to Lucky the Stories, Angad,
Thank you.
and truly appreciate you taking this time. I know it's a spring break, and usually spring break kids don't want to come out. My son actually, he's he just woke up half an hour ago. So he likes to relax during spring break. But here you are, you're taking a time, you want to share your story. Um, so do you want to introduce yourself and tell who you are and what's your faith, and we can
Yeah.
start from there.
So I'm Angad Singh, and I am from the Sikh faith. Now, one of the defining characteristics of the Sikh faith is that we're monotheistic, which means that we believe in one all powerful God, who we often refer to as Vaheguru or Akal Purakh. Now, we as Sikhs, we believe in humility and devotion to this one God. And every Sunday, like how Christians go to church, how Jewish people go to synagogues, we Sikhs go to the Gurdwara Sahib. It's our place of worship. It's where we can pay our reverence to this Akal Purakh. And another thing about Sikhism is that we have 10 Guru Sahibs who we often think of as our teachers or guides. Now, the first Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, was born in around 1469, the early 15th century, and he basically founded the Sikh faith. And from there on, Sikhism grew and grew, and today we currently have 11 gurus. Our current guru is Guru Granth Sahib Ji, who we refer to as our living guru, and we go to the Gurdwara Sahib, pay our respects, and really learn more about this faith, our faith.
Thank you. So I want to, and by the way, every time when you give the speech, and I'm not trying to make it conscious, but you are amazingly, your hand gestures is something that I learned. I mean, I have learned through various podcasts and various YouTube channels how to do a presentation. But as a 14-year-old, when I listened to you, this is one thing I genuinely took it out of you, and I said, how do I make my speeches in a gesture, right? So when I listen to you or when others listen to you, what I have noticed that you give us speeches um, for 15 to 20 minutes and you pick up a subject. And my interaction with you has been always around in the religious body in the
Yeah.
Gurudwara, right? Is that is that the speeches that you give, is that something that you incline towards this content that makes you give the speeches, or is that a is in general you are inclined towards not having a stage fear and you're able to speak on any subjects outside even a gurdwara?
Well, I mean, I've always had a stage fear, really,
You
but
had a stage fear?
yeah, initially, I
I
think
don't see that.
everyone does.
Okay.
But what really drives me, the reason I try giving these speeches to people, it's not to like have the most accurate content ever. It's not to like compete with anyone with knowledge. My main goal is to inspire the young generation because really, if we think about it, these people who are young today are going to be the leaders tomorrow. So what I really want to do is I want to bring them closer to their faith, their roots, so that they can succeed in the future.
So, do you also go outside and give the speeches outside this, or you are very focused on the religious aspect of speeches?
Some I tried to take the opportunity outside if I can, maybe like a school speech sometimes, presentations. But yeah, mostly it's just been in the religious sphere for now.
Sphere. And
Yeah.
is that something you were from a day one, from the time that you remember, you were able to incline toward this, or it was an influence from your family or parents that you saw going them every Sunday, or work doing some activities outside Gurdwara, which is more inclined toward the. How did so? My question is, how did this religious thought process at the age of 14, and not even 14, I remember at the age of 12 I have seen you. By the way, the first ever speech that I heard from you, and I have been asking from Gurdwara for maybe last 2 years, is you gave a speech about Sikhism as to what is if you recall, like when you come to Gurdwara,
Yeah.
like what are the things you do, you there is a hukamnama, there are steps
The
in the
main
process.
purpose.
I thought that was the fantastic speech, and that I think you gave it at the age of 12, if I'm not mistaken.
I
That was
think
a
it was around 2 years ago, so
yeah.
around 12.
And the second speech that I remember about you was about Khalsa Divas. Do you remember that? Like, what is Khalsa
Oh yeah,
like
that was the first ever speech I gave in
in
my
Gurdwara?
life, basically.
And
Yeah.
that speech was amazing. Now, I think I got mixed up. I thought it was the second one, but then you're saying that was the first ever?
Yeah.
Yes. So that speech, after that, I asked it and I have that copy.
Oh, you do?
I do, and I read it, and I made that read to my kids. So you do make an impact. So that is very fascinating. But I want to touch on your thought process about um, the when you prepare your speeches, right? You are actually touching to a subject which has been touched by millions of people in the past. It's the scriptures. You have to be very careful and very articulate in what you are saying, because there will be people out there who will think that, oh, this is not right, this is not how it should be. Do you ever come across in your life where you have given the speeches that you have experienced um, this criticism? And if so, how have you able to handle those criticism?
When I give my speeches, I do know that they are not 100% accurate. I do try using some reliable sources, but yes, there have been a few times when I have presented, we'll just say misinformation.
You have.
Yes.
And is that something comes to as a criticism by somebody will come out to you straight and say that this is wrong, or they would go to your parents and your parents would give you the feedback? How does that process
I
work?
sometimes it would go to me, but the way I take it is that I see it as a way to improve my next speech. So the shortcomings of one speech will be the strengths of my next. So that's my motto. That's how I try and approach this criticism.
And I remember last week when I was talking to you, I asked the same question to you and you gave me the same answer. Um, so can you walk me through so that somebody, let's say my son, who's 14 and the younger one is 12, um, I took him. I remember when he was 10 and the younger one was 8, I took him to the public speaking courses. And every Saturday I would go in the morning, and then we would spend time sitting outside and they would learn. Um, but that was something I was injecting in them to do the public speaking. It wasn't within them that they wanted to do. And of course, they are 10 and 8, right? Now, on the contrary, when I see you, was there was there a point where this public speaking, was it something that your parents initially said you should do this because it will help you to spiritually cleansen yourself so that you can understand what you are researching and then you're saying it? So was there initiation came from them, or was it the
Hmm.
fire within you that you wanted to do that?
So it was actually another thing. So one of the main people at our Gurdwara Sahib, it was Visakhi, I think 2 years ago, the
Okay.
weeks coming to it.
Okay.
And
And
like he
sorry
said,
to interrupt. When you say Vaisakhi, for sake of
uh,
understanding, what does Vaisakhi means?
so Visakhi in the Sikh faith, it basically reflects the day when the Khalsa was created.
Okay.
Now, the Khalsa is basically this collective group that was founded in 1699 by our 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And the main goal of the Khalsa Panth is to basically be the army of this Vaheguruji, this God. Like we're meant to fight tyranny with compassion and sweetness.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So go on to your story. I didn't mean
yeah,
to interrupt. So when you spoke about your experience on Vaisakhi, what was it? You were saying, right, that
yeah.
how did you got that idea of giving a speech and all that stuff?
So the weeks coming, like the Gurdwara wanted to do something different for this Bisakhi around 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, like, he asked my mom, which I think it was maybe because I was one of the older kids at the Gurdwara Sahib at the time. But
Okay.
he asked my mom, would Angad be open to giving a speech next week? And she said, sure, why not? It would be a new experience.
Without she confirming with you, she okayed with you
I
to
know,
have.
I was there also.
Oh, you were also there. Okay.
Yeah, I
And then
thought,
did it come across to you as like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Was it like what was your immediate reaction? Like, did the fear, like, I remember the first time when I gave a speech. Now speech to me comes to me as a second nature. So for me, it doesn't bother me, like I don't get. But I remember the first time I had a like a butterfly in my stomach. Like I was always conscious about, like, oh my God, what is people gonna think? How are they gonna react to it? And then one fine day, it occurred to me that all these people are here to listen. If they knew, they would come and say, but they are not. So I would rather say what I feel. And if I say it from my heart and if I have a strong content, I'm okay with it. But that I
yeah,
am
true.
also talking from my wisdom and experience because of my age. On your side, I mean, age shouldn't be a matter, but at a 14, having that wisdom, or 12, having that wisdom is not easy. So, what was your first reaction when it was to have you, like, okay, you have to do it? How did you take that, and how did you put together your thoughts and your research? Can you walk through that process so somebody who is listening can learn from this, that everybody has a fear, but how do you overcome that fear if you had one?
So I initially took that, like, giving the speech that offer. I thought it would be interesting, a new experience, something new to try. Like if it didn't work out, I never have to do it again.
Okay.
So I was treating it with not too much weight.
Okay.
So in that week, it was a spring break, I believe, similar to this week. But I researched, I put together a speech on the event, and then on Visaki, I do remember I did initially have some stage fear, but that all went away the moment I started speaking. It's like I was zoned in. I knew what I wanted to say, and I said it.
So the the speech that you prepared, obviously you did the research, right? Was there a research that took place with the help of your parents, or it was completely your research? And another thing, what I want to understand when you do the research, right? So in today's world, what I think, I always talk to my kids. I say that your age kids and when I was growing up, we are no different for one reason. Why? Because at your age, you have so much information available on online, right? So how do you believe which one is right? In my age, we didn't have any information. You have to go and look for the
At the
information.
library,
It's a
probably.
library. So and I grew up in a village, so we didn't have that library and all that stuff. So I didn't have that information available. So you or your age group have so much information available. How do you confirm the information available online, and when you're doing a research and you're putting your package together for a speech is right? And I even today, when I have to put something together, may it be at the work or may it be in my personal life, I always struggle and it comes to my mind like, is it a right information? So how do you navigate through that? Um,
Well, for at least in the religious topics, the way I can like tell if it lines up is that like these stories, like for example, the story of Visakhi, the story of our gurus, they have been passed down generation by generation. So we all automatically have like the base knowledge of where to start in our research. And like from the start, if a source said something different than what I heard from my like parents and elders,
then
then
you would
I know
confirm.
that something is wrong with this.
So do you, when you put things together, do you run by your parents to see this is what it is?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Actually, the first speech, like we spent the last 3 days before it just going through it together, my parents and I, on the Google Doc. We were editing it, polishing it, putting like correct quotes in, correct facts. So that's what we were doing. And we still do that today, I think, for some of my longer speeches, because you never know what information's right, what information's wrong. It really takes multiple people to figure that out and navigate through this web of websites.
So in that process, when you do that, does it come to a point where the content is one part of it, and then the second part is how long is your speech? Like, do you also do the discussion around like, okay, my speech has to be in certain time span because people have a short span
Yeah.
of, you know, things that they can listen to. Do you also work on that aspect of your speeches, or how do you go through that?
So I'll admit time hasn't been my priority lately, but like lately in my last few speeches, I've been really trying to improve it because time is a hard thing, especially when you're just zoned in and giving the speech. Like time is just secondary. You're mostly worried about, okay, I have to give this speech. But some things I have been doing to improve the time because obviously, like you said, attention span isn't too long.
It is true.
So what I've been doing is I've been using like a timer on my phone and then just like timing each section and then going through the laps
So
and just timing it
I
really.
do notice when you're giving a speech, you have I mean a phone with
Yeah.
you. So you have like a limit on each paragraph. Is that how you do it, or how do you time? Like how do you do that? Like while you're zoned in into giving a speeches, but at the same time you're keeping an eye on your time. How does that? How, can you explain a little bit further?
So I usually have the speech on the phone on the Google Doc app
Okay.
and then there's usually a clock. So
Okay. So you
like
okay.
yeah, and then depending on like how much time has elapsed, how much more speech do I have to read, then I try speaking faster or slower based off of that variable.
I see. And then when you're giving those speeches, do you also prepare and then you, because I remember, and let me let me take a step back. Um, in 2014, I remember, or 13 or sometime that time, I remember when Hillary Clinton was running for a presidential election. I don't know which year was specifically. Yeah, I think it was 14, I believe. Um, I saw one of the clips where she was practicing for one of the debates, and there was they showed this how they practice to give debate speeches and all that stuff. Do you also like when you so first step is to identify the content. The second step is to put that content on a document. The third step in the process is that now you work through an editing and make sure that it comes in a specific time window. Now the next step is to kind of give a speech. So do you also like a do a run like a run like a speech at home in front of your parents or it is just that okay, I have it done it, I prepared my head and I'll just present it as an if it's ready.
Yeah, I think especially for my longer speeches, then I definitely like rehearse it a couple times and make sure I have those points ironed out and make sure my presentation is sound.
So you also like you have your audience is your parents at
Yes.
home and they would listen to you and they would give you the feedback.
Yeah.
Now I heard the word you said sound. What does that mean? Like, can you explain a little bit further?
For instance, like when you're speaking, you really don't want to sound monotonous because the audience could get bored pretty easily. So, what we want to try and do is we want to try and fluctuate our pitch and tone so that way the audience can stay engaged. Like they aren't zoned out, they don't get bored.
So then how all this technical aspect, right? How do you learn that? Like what you just said is a very technical aspect of a speech. Like is that something on your free time you go online and see what's out there and how to improve it? Or is it something that you learn as you experience and you see what your feedback is from the live audience?
Really, it just like happens automatically, especially when you give all these speeches for a couple of years. Eventually, you just start like, how can I get better? How can I get my message clearer? So you just like automatically start Googling and find these technical terms, these tips.
So you do go online and research,
Yeah.
right? Um, You know, one of the thing, and I think I asked you earlier too, that you, I have only seen your speeches and I get so fascinated from a religious body. If you have to, if now that you don't have that, do you still have a fear? By the way, let me ask you this first. If you go today, do you still, because I have read certain books and I have read certain um, inspiring people who are very good orators, and all of them have said that irrespective of how many speeches they have given in public forum, there is always that little fear or a butterfly in their stomach thinking that okay, and also that little fear is good to have so you can focus in making sure that you give the best out of best. Do you still experience that little fear before you go on a stage?
Well, I think I definitely do, but it's definitely less than like the very first speech. Usually nowadays, I can feel fear like maybe about 10 minutes before I give the speech, but again, the second I start giving that speech, it just
You just
all
zone out.
dissipates. Yeah.
And and one of the thing that I learned in the speeches is that and I can't remember who mentioned this while I was going online. He said that when you're in the audience and you're giving a public speaking, or when you're on a public forum, you just find that one person and you just look at that one individual, and then you completely zoned out and you feel like you're connected with that person, and the other ones are zoned out. Is that also you experience that, or you're looking across like you are connected with somebody in that public speaking?
I'd argue that I try connecting with as many people as I can, like multiple people, because one thing when you're publicly speaking, you have to look at everyone so that everyone feels involved.
Okay.
But at the same time, I try zoning in on one person in like the general area. I zone in on one person in each area to really try and like connect, get them engaged.
Right. So my research on that was because I when I started doing this, this is what I learned, and I have started practicing that. But then because I'm so conscious on that point, I just lose out on that one person, and then I just start looking around. Um, so and so that was my question, which I was going to ask you, was that when you are doing this in a religious forum, is your outside in your personal life, outside this religious forum, is your school or anybody is aware about this, that you do this? And if so, is your school is giving you that kind of a platform in a public speaking in a different subjects?
Well, people know I'm good with public speaking. Obviously, you have to give the presentations in class so that those skills, the beautiful thing about them is that they're universal. So I present in class, and people like are aware that I do have some experience publicly speaking. So
So,
I
so what
try.
kind of other subjects do you kind of interest you outside the religious aspect of speaking? Like, what would come to you as a naturally that okay, like, is there a game or video games, or is it like technology or AI or robotics? Because these days, at your age, I think that's a very common thing. Um, which subject comes to you as a thing that you think you would be better in sharing your thoughts in a public forum?
I'd say maybe the technology, the computer science aspect, maybe even finances, like economics, maybe some of that area.
So I remember I was talking to your mom last week or week before, and I said that my our biggest challenge is my kids are so hooked up to the phone, even though they're very kind. I give them a limit, um, and I said, how does your son can do all this without getting distracted from the phone? And one of the things that she told me was that, well, he is not into the phones, but he makes he you make a video games, like you're working on the video game, like you do.
Sometimes I program.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
program them, right? So you are not into it, you're not hooked up to it, but you are actually kind of making the
yeah.
video games. So you bring an amazing one is like a public speaking and the other is your technical aspect. So do you call yourself like a technically savvy in a sense that your mind gravitates more toward the technical side or the non-technical side? Or does it matter when you're doing a public speaking? Like, because I what I have also heard, that person who is very technical savvy or who's very much involved in the technicals, they don't want to be in the front. They want to sit down back and they do what they have to do and give them. And so that's why they have in the corporate world, they have people on the front face who are very much focused on that. So if you have to look yourself, would you consider any of those?
I'd say that I'm fine with giving a speech on maybe like anything as
Anything
long as I have like that
that
information, because really if you have the content and you have the presentation skills, you can give a speech on like virtually anything. Like I can give a speech on this cup right now theoretically.
so by the way, what would you give this? Let just what not to put you on a spot. If I have to give, if this, it will help me market my podcast. If you have to give this lucky story, what would you say? One word.
Like
Like
a
what
speech
would come to your mind without researching?
about this cup, about
Yeah,
this brand.
about this brand.
I'd say it seems retro almost.
Okay,
It seems
which
like
is
it
true.
has like the green, the aqua, which I usually associate those with good luck, hence the name, obviously.
That's I. So retro is a true thing because I
Yeah.
I like to associate things with the retro aspect, but the aqua thing, yes, you're right. I think it's just the luck and all that stuff. So yeah. Um. So I wanna go back. You know, when you're giving a speeches, um, and you're speaking about the Sikhism, which is the faith that you follow, and so do I. Um, and one of the things that I noticed in past few gatherings or sittings in a gurdwara, that you do a hukamnama,
Yeah.
right? Now, hukamnama is something that after our, and I'm not that good at this subject, so I will excuse me if I'm not saying it correctly. But hukamnama is something that after um, the kirtan is over,
Yeah.
ardas, then when we do this, it is an order that is given by the guru, which you said is an 11th guru, which is the Guru Granth Sahib, which is our book. we I want to be mindful. It's not a book; it's a guru. Um, and we open and then we read, and it's an order from the Vaheguru, and you then actually give the meaning of that, right?
Yes.
You come on, and that is something you cannot prepare because it's a randomly open and it comes and you speak, right? What fascinated me with that particular thing is even today at this age, I will admit I don't know anything about Sikhism. I'm learning. It's a process. Yes, at this age, I have started realizing that I'm very fortunate that I got to be in this faith where I could learn so many things. But your age, seeing that and then comprehending and you're articulating in an English, how? Like, is that something you can read, you can understand? Like, how does that come? Like, do you continuously spend time at home reading and understanding and analyzing it and what it means, or it is something naturally comes to you when you're listening to the hukamnama, because there is also a screen where you read the
Yeah.
English, right? How can you walk through that process?
The Hukamnama is so it's not over there itself. I mean, it's taken in the Amrit Vela, which we refer to as the morning hours. So every single Hukamnama at the Gurdwara, though it may seem random, like after Ardas, it's taken at the Amrit Vela hours in the morning when they bring the Guru Granth Sahib out, and they post that Hukamnama so everyone can read it in the morning. And that's sort of where I read it. And then I spend that morning just comprehending it, looking at resources, websites that can help me dive deeper into its meaning. And then I try piecing together the points I find to create a speech that revolves around this Hukamnama.
So you have a home at home, you have Guru Granth Sahib, and you do that too.
I know it happens at the Gurdwara, but they send it out to everyone.
Oh, so every morning you read and try
Yeah, on
to
Sundays.
on Sundays. Okay, but then at after Ardas that happens. That is a different one, right?
No, that's the same one.
Oh, it's the same one.
It is.
Oh, okay. So you do prepare yourself in a way.
Yeah, but there isn't as much time because usually I only have around 3 hours to prepare the speech and then deliver it at around 12 to 1.
Wow. And you are able, and I would have not known this. I mean, you do a fantastic job in sharing that. In fact, I remember I was talking, my kids are not into understanding, or at least that age. Um, and it's by all means our fault. We should do a better job as a parents, but um, they do like when you speak, I have noticed them. They will make an effort to listen to you, and every time when we go back in the car, at times they do say that yeah, he's very good. He does a good job. So I think you are able to connect to the youngsters, and as what you were saying earlier, that you want to make sure that these young people are the leaders, right? And 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 is that also like things that you say is coming out of a wisdom? Like you have an amazing wisdom. um, do you read a lot outside Guru Granth Sahib?
Yeah, I'd say read I read novels sometimes. It's from the school library.
But is that something like reading is your hobby too? Does it gravitates you more towards the reading in your free
Yeah,
time?
I'd say I'm more of a reader.
More of a reader?
Yeah.
Do you think that reading also helps people to process and understanding about things, and they are able to connect the words into sentences and be able to say it? Do you think reading is a so maybe I'll put a question differently. What is that helps if you have to give that one line that there is a person who wants to do a speech, or a kid, and he's having all the stage fear in the world, and there is one thing he has to start from. What is that message you would give to that kid?
I'd say if there's an individual who has stage fear but they really want to get their point across, I'd argue that if you believe in that point, and if you believe if you completely believe in what you're trying to say, your all of your passion will go in. When you start speaking, you'll immediately zone in. So I tell that individual to find what you love, find your passion, and that way you can speak about that point to a large group of people, and the words, they'll come naturally because you're speaking from your heart rather than just your brain.
So content matters to what you like,
Yeah,
basically. And in your view, in your content is more gravitated towards the Guru Granth Sahib and religious body. Is that something you always you developed this recently, or is it something from the day one? You were always surrounded with the parents who were into this kind of a mindset. Like, how did this thing came? Is it naturally to you, or is it like it was given to you and then you thought, oh yeah, this is something I really like?
I'd say it's a combination of the factors. So
As a
like
combination.
like my parents would go to the Gurdwara Sahib, but also like from the start I had a passion in learning. Like I think I could learn things easily, and that sort of gave me that ability to like learn quickly and articulate my thoughts to create a presentable speech.
And this may be a personal question, and you can say if you don't want to speak to it. Now you have a sister. How old is your sister?
Around 4 or 5.
5. Is she into that? Like, do you discuss with her? Like, does she have the passion just like you?
I'm not sure because those things develop when you get older, like 8, 9,
8, 9.
especially when you're a teenager, your personality really develops.
So you think that this is more, so your gravitation towards this came at the age of 8 or 9, you would say? Around
I'd
that
say,
time?
yeah, maybe
Around
so.
that time?
Yeah.
You know, I would love to talk on this because actually, to be honest with you, I'm learning so much, and I'm going to take some pointers from you, and I will try to improve on my speeches. But I wanna take a little slight different subject, and I wanna definitely want to understand from your point of view because A, you read, B, you understand um, the Guru Granth Sahib in a way that many of us probably don't have, and that kind of an understanding. How do you, so there is a religious part and there is a spiritual path, right? How do you see the difference between spirituality and religious part? Like, is do you, first of all, do you see the difference, or do you, how do you see spirituality?
I'd say that spirituality is something that you believe in deeply with all your might, like you're willing to die for that cause. I'd say that's spirituality. Whereas religion is like you're following the rules. You're doing what you need to do to like succeed, to like escape reincarnation, go to heaven, whatever your faith is.
And do you believe that, and you may not, you don't have to answer if you don't feel like it, do you think that you are religious or you are spiritual? Which side of the aisle do you fall into, or you just
I don't
don't
know, I'd
know?
say it's too early to tell.
Too early to
Yeah.
tell. Um, well, I would love to talk to you, and I'm so thankful that I know it's a spring break, and you may have taken a time off to come from some of the activities you may be doing or not. But I genuinely want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to have you share your thoughts on a public speaking. What is your next public speaking that you're planning to do?
It's actually tomorrow at the Gurdwara Sahib only. There's the Vaki program over there at
And
Hamden.
what are you planning? Or is it something you want to keep it as a surprise element?
I'll keep it as a surprise. It's a bit of a spin off from the second speech you mentioned, the second speech I ever gave, the introduction to Sikhism.
I
But
can't wait. I am going to be there and I look forward to that. Any message you want to give to our audience who's listening? Anything you would like to share? Anything you feel like may benefit the kids? Because your story is very inspiring. For at least for me, I think at your age, when kids are basically um, on the phones, kids doing things that they can do better. I think you are a true inspirations to many, and I think I am really inspired from your story and the way you live your life and try to make more meaningful out of it. I'm sure your parents are equally proud. You don't only, let me put it this way, you don't only make your parents proud. You make the community proud. you make the humanity proud. And I think that is more bigger than just, and I genuinely say from my heart. And that's why I wanted you to come to my show, because this Lucky the Stories is basically, even though I say it's a Lucky the story, it's not my story. It's actually everyone's story. And if somebody can learn from this, it can benefit so much. If you can change one person, you have done a dramatically a great job. What is that one message you would give before we close it?
Well, I would tell people to continue doing what you love, like what your true passion is, because that true passion, it's going to be your strength, which will drive your life like years from now. So find that passion, stick to it, and do it religiously, do it with all of your devotion, and eventually you will be a happy, joyful person, and you will not regret the choices you made.
Thank you. That was very, very profound. And I am glad to hear that the word that you use, joyful, because in my opinion, I see joy is more important than being happy. You didn't purposely use the word happy. You said joy, because joy comes within. Happiness can depend on outside things. I've got a house. I'm happy. Joy is within. So you are an amazing soul. I
Thank
am
you.
so glad that you came to my show, and I cannot wait to see all the good things you do in life, and making us proud again.
And
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.